Guys, welcome back. Let's create a budget. Let's get out of debt. Let's build wealth. To the channel. So we're going to continue on with the step-by-step process of creating wealth. So the first step is to figure out your income. So, go through, depending if you're just starting this out, then think about the past 3 months. What did you use to pay your bills, to go out, to do whatever you were doing? Were you using your checking account, the debit card from your checking account? Were you using credit cards? Think of what you used those throughout these past few months, and understand this is the first part to understand whether or not this is going to work for you, to understand or not whether you're going to get out of your current situation, get out of debt, start building wealth, is if you have the discipline to do this. So take some time, block out 20-30 minutes or an hour, and if you're going to use Excel, my course has the Excel that I've been showing you, or you can create your own. If you don't have Excel, then there is Open Office. You can Google that, and it's sort of a generic version of Excel. And if not, you can even do this on just a sheet of paper. But the first step is to actually go through, and guys, while we're on this topic, another thing is, if you're really wanting to do this and really want to track and make sure that you're staying accountable and keeping on track, and even if you don't have a lot of money, it might be worth it to spend the time to get a good computer. It's kind of hard to do this from your phone or maybe even an iPad. It may be hard to navigate and move and to really do this to its full extent. So it might be time just to, if you're already in debt and you're about to get out of debt anyway, you might as well just spend the money and time to make sure that you're doing this right. It's worth it to have the tools you need to get out of debt in the first place. So, just a thought here, if you're able and you have the money, even if, you're working hard, you're trying to get out of debt and you don't want to spend any, go ahead and, buy that computer, buy the Excel software, and get set up and know that you're doing this to, if you're sticking to this and you don't know anything about velocity or infinite banking, you're going to save that in interest probably your first few months anyway. So that's just a food for thought. But basically, figure out your income. So if you can't do this and you're just kind of winging it, that's probably what's going to happen with this whole process. You literally got to block out some time, whether you have to get out of the house and go to a library. You can do this at the library. They have Excel. I believe there's still libraries around. So most towns do have a library. Go to your local library, sign in, say you need to use a computer, go buy a zip drive. A zip drive now is $5 or less. Buy a zip drive, go to the library, and again, comment if y'all want me to do a step-by-step on how to build that Excel, or you can download my course, which goes in depth on how it actually works also. But if that's an option too, if you don't have money, you can go to a library. It's not a bad thing because it'll have the tools you need to do this. It'll actually block out your time and making sure that your time is focused on this, and it'll get you in order. So what you're going to do is open up, like I said, if you use your bank account and a credit card, grab all of your statements for everything that you use. Well, actually, this first step is just your income. So it's going to be your checking account. So figuring out your income is go through back to your bank deposit. If you, in this step on figuring out your income, let this be the step also to make sure that you have all money directed into one account. If you have multiple accounts, make sure that you cancel those deposits into the other accounts and funnel all income into one account. And then if you have, say, a savings account, cut that off. No longer put any money in the savings. And if you have a 401k, this, I'm not going to tell you, this is up to you, but I would cancel the 401k also. Even with company match, I would cancel it. And the reason is, the savings, your bank is going to become your savings account. It's going to become your retirement account. It's going to become your asset for even retiring. So if you have a 401k and, I guess you could do this, actually, we should more call this preparing to start. So figuring out your income, figuring out your expenses to start. Let's do this. Okay, so you're going to create 2 checking accounts. So and depending on how deep and far you want to go into this, you can think about your current bank or your current credit union and understand that you're starting this from a point where you may be doing a lot of work to get out, but kind of think always in this process, even though we're focusing one step at a time, kind of always think about the future too. If you don't have a line of credit yet, or you don't have, you barely have a credit card or something like that, think about the future. Okay. So the ultimate goal is a line of credit to use as a debt tool. So if you're at a bank, just think like, are they going to be able to extend me a line of credit, or would a credit union be better? So figure out which one you want. When you're creating that second checking account, think about the ease of it. Like, are you able to transfer easily and quickly between the accounts? Are there fees between transferring? Granted, you won't be transferring that much, but you will be transferring your budget every month. So think about that. Some credit unions, and I'm sure banks have it also, is a text feature to where if you're using your budget account, you can just text a number and it'll tell you your balance. It's pretty quick and easy. What you do is when you go in to create the second checking account, whichever one you choose, usually you're going to be in the office talking to someone. At that time, ask them about lines of credit. Say, do you have a revolving line of credit that you guys extend? And say, I'm not interested now. I just want to know, what you guys check for, and get their name, their number, ask them who approves it, and get that person's name, number, information, and then just call and start building a relationship. It doesn't matter how much in debt you're going into this, thinking strategically. Okay. I mean, another thing about all of this, it gets really lonely kind of, and sometimes it's hard to find people to support and help you. So you got to do all of this, start from day one, start building and thinking in a way that is going to lead you to basically one day become wealthy. So acquiring that line of credit, again, just talk to the people, hey, eventually I want to get a line of credit. I'm going to work and build. I'm not interested right now. I just want to know what's all required. Call the people constantly, once a week. Just call them and or once every 2 weeks or once a month, just ask more and more questions. So first step, create your bank, create your second checking account, choose a bank or credit union that will extend a line of credit, ask them questions. You're basically interviewing them, so that's the first step. Once you have that bank set up, you have your second account set up, and that part shouldn't really take that long. Once, go out and do that, then start thinking about your bank, becoming your own banker. If, this part, like I've always called it the foundation, and it could take a while to set up. So just kind of think about how much you want to be doing on this. If you don't have a lot of money, start off small. If you have the money to put in, understand that you could be funding this for years. Watch the video on infinite banking and then kind of decide on what you're gonna do there. So once you have your bank set up, you kind of have it, or once you have your second checking account set up and you kind of have an idea of what you kind of want your bank to be, then open those, whatever you have your check, the next step to make sure that all that money is being direct deposited into one account. If you have multiple accounts, go into your job or whatever, go in and change those accounts. Remember that during this process, you're going to, once you have all that income directed and it goes in your checking account, when your expenses come out, they're going to be split 3 different ways. One of those is a budget. So what's going to happen is when you go to pay your bills every month, your budget will be transferred into that second checking account that you created. So technically budget is just another bill, but it will be transferred. So when you're going to enter your income, you're going through and finding out what your income is. You can have your budget direct deposited in your account. You can add from your job. You can make 2 deposits, one to your main account, one into a budget account. That's just an example. Or still, I think it's easier to have it all transferred into one account and just do that transfer from account to account. And remember, when you're in the bank and you're creating that second checking account, ask them, if it's like a credit union, ask them if you can link those 2 accounts to where you could just transfer back and forth. You don't have to really look up any kind of information. Ask them about the transferring between accounts. How easy is it? Is there something I need to do? Is it just a matter of clicking a button, or do you have to actually link that second account to the first account and vice versa? So find your monthly income, depending on how you created it. If you're using Excel, make sure you enter at least this part up here to where you can have your income, expenses, and then just a simple formula to subtract income from expense to get your cash flow. So enter your income, find out what it is, enter that total number here. And remember, if you're going to be reducing your 401k, you can, I know 401ks for a lot of people, those retirement counts is something they don't want to mess with. They kind of ignore it, but that's something you should proactively be taking, at least putting some thought into, because especially like with the current market situation, people are losing so much money. People have lost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. This video I'm making during the time when this market is bad, this coronavirus is causing all of this stock to come down. And as far as my policy, my life insurance, my bank, it hasn't affected it at all. I didn't lose a single dollar. So, if you're kind of unsure about messing with your account, you don't want to touch it, you don't want to look at it, just think of it this way. When you go to create your bank, your life insurance policy, at the very minimum, you could be depositing what you were depositing into that 401k. Just redirect that into your policy. So anyway, find your income. That's the first step. Go through your bills. You saw in the other video to basically do an average, a 3-month average. And then, if you're bi-weekly, you need to times it by 2 to come up with your monthly average. Once you have this income, you will need to figure out your expense. So you have both of your checking accounts open. You have an idea of your bank. Your income. Now you need to do your expense. To do your expense, go through, the same, this is where you think about, okay, what did I use the last 3 months? Did I use multiple credit cards? Did I use a debit account? What did I use? You take all of what you use, and if you're at a library, and you're not at home, you can log into your accounts. Be careful about making sure that you just be careful if you're on not on a private computer, that you're logging out of everything, that you're not, make sure that it's not saving your information. Just be careful if you're not at your house. This is something you could do on your phone if you in the beginning, like just to write it down. So if you don't have the Excel, you can at least write this information down while you're at home by checking on your phone. But go through all your bills, because it's easy to forget something. So pull up your statements over the last, I would say 2 months, maybe 3 months, even 1 month. I mean, as long as you're pulling, if you use multiple credit cards, log into your first credit card account and just kind of jot down stuff that you see, like stuff maybe that's coming out automatic, and jot that down, like, okay, phone or utility. You don't have to, it's more of getting the general idea of what it is. And once you have that list, log into your next one, go down the list, kind of see what you've done. And then if you use your bank card also, log into your bank account over that same time frame, that same period of time, and write down. Once you have everything written down, then compose a list of, rent, mortgage, car payment, whatever it is that you spend money on. Once you have that complete list, I would leave out, again, you can itemize out groceries, gas, but really you don't even have to include all of those. What you need to include is things that monthly related to house, car, student loans, things like that. Once you've gotten all of your bills listed here, right, you list all your bills, it's going to give you a cash flow amount. So once you have that cash flow amount, right, you have the cash flow amount. From there, you're going to create your budget. So your budget is based off of whatever your cash flow is left after you have all of these bills listed. This is part of living within your means. This is part of basically becoming an adult if you haven't, depending on who you are. But if you follow this and stick to this, this is going to help you tremendously. So list all your bills. I'm going to skip over this because we just went through this in the last video. List all your bills. Create your budget from your bills, and then from this point, once you have your budget created, that's where you're going to decide how much is going to be going into your bank. So the initial bank, setting up your bank as far as the MEC limit and all of that, it doesn't matter if what you want to set it at. You can be, it doesn't make sense to have a massively high MEC that you can't realistically meet within a few years. It's okay to inflate the MEC a little bit, but don't go too high because you're defeating the purpose there. And understand that this bank is going to be used in the getting out of debt phase as your emergency fund, and when the building wealth phase is going to be used kind of like a line of credit or leverage. So just kind of think of a well balance in between those two, and then set up your bank. So now we will have your income, you'll have your expenses, you'll have your bank set up, and you'll know your cash flow. So one more thing I want to touch on this video, this is what we're going to get into next, but I just wanted to say, if you don't, some people do not believe in the infinite banking concept. They probably don't fully understand it. If it makes you nervous and you're not interested, that's fine. Let your foundation be, it's going to basically be a line of credit. Most people don't even have a line of credit, but what we're going to do is you can use your savings account. So on that main checking account, your savings account will become your line of credit. So in Velocity Banking, you acquire a line of credit, and then you'll chunk that debt. You'll chunk all of that line of credit onto debt. At that point, your line of credit is at 0 or 20% or 30%. But basically, your savings account will work just like a line of credit at the point at which the chunk has been made. You just don't have that first chunk. So you'll use that savings account. You think of it the same way as the banking concept, you know, especially if you don't have the bank. If you are interested in the bank and you're working through setting it up, you can still start this savings right away by transferring it to your savings account. So whatever that amount was that you're going to be transferring to your bank, you will now transfer to your savings account. Once your bank is open, whatever you accumulated, you'll transfer straight into the policy. And if you're not using the policy, then your savings account will become your emergency fund. So I guess I just wanted to do a recap before we continue, because I know that this can get confusing, but hopefully that kind of gave a clear path that you know, go out. First thing you do in the morning or wherever you're watching this is to understand, first of all, what you're doing, but then go out and create a second checking account, which is now going to become your budget account. And then you're going to separate your budget from all the rest of your bills. Your cash flow, expenses, and that main account will be the driving force for creating the wealth in the background while you're doing your everyday living through your budget account. So create the second checking account, gather your income amount, gather your expenses, understand the flow in which this is going to be happening. You know, your income's going to come in, you're going to have your checking account, your expenses are going to come out, your line of credit, whether that be a personal line of credit, HELOC, credit card, or your savings account. This flow is going to work in any situation. So create those two accounts, get your expenses, get your income, get your cash flow numbers, and your savings asset, whether that be your bank or just a savings account in the beginning. And we're going to continue on from there in the next video. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.